Okay, I think there needs to be one rule that should be imposed immediately on every one member of this board.
Okay.
And that is that we should not be treated any differently than any citizens. If you want to FOIA something from the Prince William County government or from another board member, you should have to pay for it, just like any other citizen. I think that should go for everybody. And that also goes for any other elected officials, whether they're members of this board or not members of this board. And because clearly there's a problem with the FOIA process when it's being used in this fashion. It's creating a whole lot of unnecessary antagonism. And I would like to waive the rules and immediately direct the change to our procedures so that any elected official is charged just like any other citizen, whether they're on this board or anything else, that they be charged for the cost of that FOIA.
I'll second it.
Mr.
So
Chairman.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
with
now discussion on that.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Lawson.
can we just clarify that the expense will be paid for either through, not through the office budget of each board member, but through either their political campaign account, personal, their friends' checking account, whatever, but that it's explicitly not paid for through their district office budget?
I like that idea. Let's go ahead and do that.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, Mr. Candland?
does this also include, because I believe that the chairman of the Democratic Committee was not charged for his FOIA answering. Does that include them? Does it include somebody like Delegate Marshall or somebody like
So
Chairman?
I've tried to keep out of this issue altogether, but from what I understand from county staff, the only reason that citizen was not charged is because they had already gathered that information. And so there was no cost to it. But the policy as it is right now, before we change it momentarily, is that we charge every citizen the cost of the FOIA. We don't charge elected officials, whether it's a member of the General Assembly or whether it's the school board member or whether it's one of us. So it's just to make, now who made the motion?
I did.
And it was seconded by Mr. Principe.
But now, we have to pay as well.
We would have to pay too. We would have to pay too. And I just want to make sure that Ms. Lawson's amendment is a friendly amendment, which is that if you want to pay for it, if you want to do the FOIA, you have to pay for it yourself, and that means it's not coming out of your government funds. It's going to come out of your PAC or your campaign funds or your personal funds or whatever, but it can't be paid for with government funds.
Mr. Chairman.
Is that, first of all, let me make sure that's an acceptable friendly amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Candland. Okay.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
Mr. Principe.
I would ask for one more amendment to your motion. That it be retroactive to the extent allowed under the law. I'll defer to the county attorney, but it's my understanding that it's possible that some of these FOIAs may actually still be within a certain window in which we can charge the actual costs of.
Okay, I would disagree with that. I think that it's just going to cause us to have this
Mr.
big
Chairman.
argument, and I just don't think it's a good idea. And so let me ask, is that a friendly amendment
Yeah, I agree with that.
with Ms. Lawson, but
Right.
with Mr. Principe you don't agree
And
with?
Mr. Principe, I think we should start from now.
Yeah, we're going to start from today, right now. All right, Mr. Candland.
I was just going to say it is against the at least what it says in the county code or the state code to retroactively do that. That you have to, before continuing the process, you have to state how much that it is going to cost before you move forward. And the fact that it's already moved forward and you just can't do it.
Okay. Okay, further discussion, Mr. Noe?
And I don't think I'm looking for an amendment to the motion. I think I'm just looking for clarification. I frequently get email requests where people ask for a particular document under FOIA. It takes me 2 minutes to forward them the emails that I have. I would not consider, I don't consider that to be worthy of asking for any remuneration back to the county for that time. I presume that when we say we're charging, we mean it as we're charging, but following the same sort of guidelines that we follow currently. There are circumstances in which we, under our current guidelines, don't charge because it takes a very small amount of time to respond. Or are we going to suggest that we're going to, I think that board members should absolutely have the same rules applying to the general public does. The question is, are we going to start charging for FOIAs to the general public and to board members that we would not have historically charged for in the past because of their small size?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Again, what frequently happens, I get it frequently, is people send me a FOIA saying I'd like all documents pertaining to, some issue. Well, my documents that I have are a couple of emails. I forward those emails to them. I don't ask for a charge because it took 2 minutes to do it. If the policy is going to be that in that situation I have to say, well, I'm going to forward these emails to you, I'm going to charge you 50 cents. We can do that, but I want to be clear about it.
I think, look, let's just make it consistent with state law, and Ms. Roble can probably answer that. Whatever the state law requires, that's where we go with.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The state law, it authorizes but does not require a public body to charge for FOIA. And FOIA is a little bit tricky because anytime someone comes and says, can I have a copy of the agenda for the meeting? If they do not say FOIA, that is still a FOIA. Anytime they ask for a public document, if they go across the way to Development Services and says, can I have a copy of that plat, etc. Anytime they ask for a public document, that's a FOIA. Mr. Candland was talking about the provision in the code that says if the amount for production will exceed $200, a public body may require a deposit. It still may. It is not a shall require. We can only recover our reasonable costs and our actual costs. And that is why I had sent the email earlier that with the new state statute that has come into play for a FOIA officer, that we would be getting together with the county executive's office and others and vetting a policy and coming back to the board on it. Because to simply say that we will charge here and not there, it is slicing and dicing it, as Mr. Noe says, if someone just asks for something. And it may, on that instance, it may cost more to require someone to pay for hit the send button versus just to give it to them. But the county does have an informal policy where we have not been charging elected officials, whether it's our own county or state, etc. And we can, moving forward, consistent with that, if that's the board's direction, we can, moving forward, go ahead and charge elected officials. And then what we were proposing is that we would then come back to the board with more formalized policy of what county staff would be implementing.
Okay, all right, is that okay with everyone?
No. I'd like,
Yeah, Mr. Jenkins.
I can support your motion. I can't support the amendment because I don't understand what you said.
What was your amendment?
Oh.
No, I'm talking about Janine's amendment.
Oh, yeah, Mrs. Lawson's amendment was just that if you, now we're going to require elected officials to pay for FOIAs. And Ms. Lawson's amendment was to clarify that if you do that and you have to pay for it, you can't pay for it with your government funds. You've got to pay for it out of your own pocket or out of your campaign funds.
But district funds, I'm not really concerned
Yeah,
about that because I don't do it anyway.
okay.
But
It's not gonna cost me anything.
what I'm trying to make sure of is that we're not mixing campaign funds and normal salary remuneration. So you get a salary from the Board of County Supervisors too. So how is that going to be interpreted?
Well, it would just be that if you want to do a FOIA,
Yeah, I mean,
you've got to pay for it itself. You just can't use your government funds. Not your compensation. Those are yours.
But what if I go and cash a check for my monthly salary and then I stick it in my pocket and I go over and I want to buy them out?
But that's your personal income, though.
Well, it changes from personal official to person.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Principe, then.
Okay.
Mr.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think what Mr. Jenkins might be getting to is a concern that the last round of FOIA requests to all of us came from a private citizen.
Yeah.
And you keep saying that this is charging elected
Right.
officials. So if a private citizen were to come forward, say a volunteer in somebody's office, requesting a FOIA, that somehow that individual wouldn't have to pay for that FOIA.
No, they have to pay.
They have to
So
pay.
everybody.
Everybody pays.
Everybody
Everybody
pays.
I like that.
President of the United States pays,
Has to
Amen to
Pope
that.
pays,
Right, and Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Reynolds pays.
right.
You know, I'm charge that.
And Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say to Mr. Jenkins, you don't even have to worry about it because you've never FOIA'd anyone,
That's right.
and neither have I.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Candland?
is this, the motion on the table is for the change the FOIA requirements, or is to waive the rules of procedure?
It's both.
So we're gonna vote all at once?
Right, we're gonna
All
waive
right,
the
well,
rules.
I will tell you, I will not be supporting this, and Mr. Chairman, I think it is, I'm very disappointed that you're proposing this resolution, because I think this will go towards making information less available to the board, less available to the public, and it further shrouds this board in secrecy. So I'm very disappointed, and I think this will have a great chilling effect, Mr. Chairman, on your proposal here.
Wow, I thought you were talking about some secret societies or something you're
Well,
promoting.
Mr. Chairman, it is important that people and people on this board can see information. If I didn't have the ability to FOIA, I would not have known that there were people on this board who are in violation of rules of procedure.
This motion does not hinder that.
It absolutely does.
No, it puts you in the same category as all the other citizens.
Well, but I'm elected
You
to
can
represent.
FOIA.
I'm elected to represent the people, the taxpayers.
Right.
And so now we're requiring that we pay for information. Me helping to determine policy, pay for information to help determine that policy.
If you use the FOIA process, there should be no change, no difference between your FOIA and a citizen's FOIA. And the reason that I think that this change is necessary is because the process has obviously caused a whole lot of unnecessary FOIAs and retaliatory FOIAs, and it's really causing a big problem. And we've already spent how much time on this, and a whole lot of consternation underneath. It's not a good thing, and it has to be fixed.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Campbell?
With all due respect, talking about how we spend taxpayer money is absolutely worth all this time we're taking. And this board to take this step to make it harder to get information, I think is deplorable.
Okay, is there further discussion? Ms. Anderson?
I just want to bring up a point that we're directing, with this, we're directing ourselves not to spend office money, but we're saying that other elected officials, delegates, state senators, whatever, we can't direct them, what funds to use. So it would be very different for us not to be able to use office funds or whatever, but they would be able to, including possibly our school board. Just want to make that.
Yeah, I don't think that they have those funds available anyway. I don't think they do. They have such a pittance in terms of what their office funds are. Yeah, they don't have an office. So, we can't tell them where the money comes from. But
Yeah.
what we can do is we can just level the playing field and say everybody pays for FOIA. Whether you're, a delegate or a supervisor or a school board member or a congressman, you pay. Citizens pay. For a FOIA. That doesn't stop you from asking county staff for information and the county staff providing it. It doesn't, we're talking about the FOIA process here. We're not talking about charging for information that you request. That's not FOIA. Through the FOIA process. Okay, Ms. Catherine?
I was just going to say, I still agree with what Mr. Lawson had said, but we can't really tell, who's one that uses it a lot? Marshall. We can't say to him, you can't take it out of whatever funds you have. He just has to pay. That's all.
Right. Okay. Okay, please vote on that motion.
The motion passes 7 in favor, 1 opposed. Supervisor Anderson, Cadigan, Jenkins, Lawson, Noe, Principe, and Stewart voting aye. Supervisor Candland voting nay.
Okay, now, I never thought I'd be happy to see individual supervisors time.